Good morning. My name is Dr. Millenizer. I'm going to talk to you today about the periodic table. This is the periodic table. This is a list of all the elements we're aware of. And we group those elements based on metals and nonmetals, based on the number of protons they have, and based on the periodicity or reactivity of each of these elements. The periodic table is laid out in a series of columns. These are the periods, and the periods represent all of the same elements that share the same amount of electrons on the outside. Thus, we can use them to predict reactivity. The elements, as you go down, increase the number of protons, and they get heavier, but they still react in a very similar manner. When using the periodic table, we need to teach you some basic patterns. Now, before, we talked about how to read it. The letters are the symbol, and the number, usually found in the top left in the periodic table, is the atomic number or number of protons. And underneath is the atomic weight, or an average of the protons and neutrons the various isotopes of this element has. There are three basic types of elements: metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. Metals are found on the left side of the periodic table. They tend to give up electrons or undergo oxidation. Now, metals are good conductors of electricity and heat. Means if you put something electrical against it, electrons will pass through. And if you put it next to something hot, it'll heat up really quickly, or it will lose heat very quickly if placed next to something cold. They are malleable, meaning if you hit them, they're going to flatten and turn into a thin sheet. Furthermore, if you pull them, they're ductile and will pull into wires. They are shiny. We call that a metallic luster. And they're opaque. You can't see through them. And most of them are solid at room temperature, the notable exception being mercury. On the right side of the periodic table, we have our nonmetals, and they tend to gain electrons, called reduction. Nonmetals are poor thermal conductors, meaning they don't change temperature very easily. And they are also poor electrical conductors or insulators. Electricity doesn't pass them easily. They are brittle, meaning if you hammer them, they don't become flattened, they shatter and break. They have little to no metallic luster. They lack a shine to them, but they may be colorful depending on the different elements. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the metalloids. You'll notice this little stair step in the right side of the periodic table. That is the dividing line between the metals and nonmetals, and everything on this line is called a metalloid because it'll share properties of both metals and nonmetals. Metalloids are all solids at room temperature, and they share individual properties of metals and nonmetals. This can give them some interesting concepts like silicon and germanium, which are semiconductors, which we use for electronics. Also, we have some things which are shiny, like a metal, but they are not ductile or malleable. If you have any questions, here's our emails. Have a good rest of your day.